looking at things and all that kind of stuff, and people get sick and tired of hearing about all the studying we're doing. If we've learned anything. Okay, and that's me too, in a lot of ways. But I think we're going to need a professional organization to help us through this restructuring of what housing for Wyandotte County looks like. That's what I'm saying. And if somebody else knows of a different way to do it, hey, you just jump right in there. But I think we have plenty of data, but I think we're maybe one of our goals is to find that leader, and I don't mean person, but that corporation or company or person who knows how to put together housing for a community, to help us with this, because I don't want us to flounder around. I want us to find something and be able to get with the program relatively quickly.
So Commissioner Philbrook, to not overly simplify this as a goal, to adopt a housing strategy and or partners.
Yep, that's good. I read it.
And when should we set a timeline so that we can keep ourselves within the SMART goals?
Yeah. So we need to get an RFP out within 60 days. How's that? Is that set enough goal?
All right. We might as well start there. We can always start there.
Thanks.
So I think that one is getting us closer to identifying an actual goal statement. So that's very important. We only have a few minutes left, and because I know we do have the 7 o'clock commission meeting, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to kind of talk about what the next steps really should be. I think as we have identified a couple other bits here that are closer to goal language, but I want to make sure we don't miss anything that we really feel is important in terms of kind of core areas of focus to ensure that that is also part of this kind of goal defining narrative. So we have stormwater specifically identified, but we have this needs assessment, which is very specific to the timeline as well. Is there anything else around infrastructure, which has come up quite a bit this evening, that we need to make sure is factored into the goal setting? Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Sorry about that. I think stormwater is an important part of the infrastructure. I think when we look at housing, we also need to, and I just can't put it together in a goal at this point that is measurable and time bound. But I think what we're hearing is we do want to continue to invest in housing in our community to bring the support from the unified government side with the funding to do what is necessary to create a catalytic development around sustainable housing, which will include the entire diversity of market rate all the way down to affordable housing for those who are rent burdened. But again, I think we have the general understanding, from what I gather, where the commission is that we want to address the housing problem. We'd like to get out in front of some of our infrastructure problems. We would like to see new development occur through our investments, and that would, again, takes in all the aspects of making good neighborhoods, parks and curbs and sidewalks, stormwater, those kinds of things. But so I just don't have the opportunity right now to kind of write that into a goal. And that it would be generative, that the money we invest or put into us would be generative. It's not just a pass through and pass out. It actually, generates continuous growth within, and it's equitable for all. But that's in general what we're trying to get to, I think, but how we put that into a goal, I just don't have the ability to do that right now.
And this is a very difficult forum for us to do that within. So I appreciate that limitation, and you know, what I would like to maybe walk us through is kind of how can we take this forward from here. But I want to make sure before we move to that next point of discussion that at least we have captured the kind of whole suite of goals that we would like to explore around the recovery. I think we have, you know, we've talked about public health, we've talked about housing, we've talked about resiliency and more accessibility in our services as an organization. We've talked about addressing the unhoused, as well as kind of thinking about moving quickly so that we can get the dollars working in our community as quickly as possible, and then leverage that against many other dollars that are available or certainly coming down the hatch, whether from the federal government or elsewhere. So we've kind of seen that. We've talked about the prioritization of our infrastructure. Is there anything that has not been captured here that you would like to make sure is prioritized in terms of where, you know, what do we do next? Commissioner McKiernan.
This isn't necessarily a prioritization of what we do next, but I would like just to ask that this is not the last time we go through this, that once you've had a chance to collate all this, once you've had a chance to bring this into a summary form, that we have another opportunity to take a look at it, because certainly with fresh eyes, we may see things that we didn't see before, or we may have different priorities than we had. So I would ask that we get to review this again.
Commissioner, it would be a great pleasure of mine to be able to kind of take all of the inputs that we've heard this evening, try to distill it into some simple, straightforward statements that you can all weigh in on, and help kind of refine or make sure that we're, you know, add to as necessary. So absolutely, whether we do that through another special session or however the mayor would like to proceed, certainly also by sharing it with you so you can provide comments. As I think that would be very important to this process. It is somewhat iterative, but it's also sometimes important to take all of these Post-it notes and just pull it down and distill it down. And if it makes it a lot easier to see if we're missing anything or if we've hit the mark. Commissioner Philbrook.
One thing we did miss, because if we don't have those folks prepared to take these well-paying jobs that we have gotten created by economic development, none of this is going to happen. We have to remind ourselves to keep working. The unified government has to keep working with our local schools and business partners and everybody to encourage all of these pipelines for getting folks prepared for jobs. And how to do that? Keep the conversation going. That's the goal. Keep the conversation going, and we need to stay as the unified government involved in that conversation. I know we are now, but I'd like to see us be a little bit more, although we're collaborating. Yeah, that's my favorite word. I'd like to see it a little bit more out in the open, not quite as behind closed doors. I'd like to see more meetings out in the public about this, how each group is working with another group to make these things happen. That's Excellent.
It. Commissioner Markley.
Thank you. I was just going to say, we've sort of been hovering around this ARPA portion of our world, but in the broader sense of our vision, I think the long-term financial planning is, you know, key to what the future vision looks like, and that plays both into our discussion of the ARPA itself and into our discussion of the infrastructure needs. So I would just say, if we can work something into a goal as far as the long-term financial planning, that is key to the long-term vision.
Excellent. Oversimplification, but I will refine, and bring back. Commissioner Burrows.
Ashley, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity tonight to discuss these issues. I'm sitting here watching your notes go up on the board, and you are very effective at being able to grasp the communication this evening. And I appreciate seeing all these issues that my colleagues have brought forward. But we have a responsibility as a local government as to provide services. We are mandated to do things, and then we want to do things, and we have to have those priorities aligned. So I go back to our priority-based budgeting model, that what is it we need to do, what can we do, and what would we like to do?
Absolutely.
And I think this evening's been a great practice. I commend you for your ability to type as fast as you do, and listening and being able to put it in words. But I've really enjoyed this evening's process, and I want to thank my colleagues for the discussion this evening. So thank you, Ashley.
Thank you very much. I've been really looking forward to tonight, so I really appreciate that. I love doing this. Well, with just a few minutes left and wanting to give you a couple minutes of a break, I don't want to take us up to the very top of the hour, but I did want to walk you through kind of, this is something that we will continue to flesh out once we kind of refine the goal language, but this is ideas of different strategies, different things that we can implement to actually realize these goals, to kind of put our vision into action. This is something that will come later, so I don't want to distract us at this point in the conversation. And I also wanted to kind of show you some of the inputs that we have already heard from the community through the limited engagement that we've already put out there, whether it was assessing and understanding what the community survey has told us in the past, whether it was listening in, on the previous session that we held in August around some of the engagement we did through the interactive polling, but also through the online discussion that we facilitated. Now, it's been very limited in the outreach we've had, but we've been listening to the emails that we've been receiving through ARPA at wykckk.org to really start to understand kind of where community partners who have been actively part of our pandemic response to date see immediate needs and ongoing priorities. So we have been capturing that information, but as we start to distill these big ideas into discrete goals that we can really work towards, this will help inform the rest of our ongoing engagement with the community. So what I propose is that we take all this information, we zhuzh it up a little bit, refine it, simplify the language, get direct in what we want to accomplish, whether it's a straightforward vision statement or very specific goals. We'd like to kind of, as Commissioner McKiernan mentioned, we would like to bring that back to you so you have an opportunity to further refine and make sure that we're all understanding of what your priorities are. And then we'll use that as the foundation with our engagement with the community, our community partners, and really help with that kind of strategy development. So whether, how you would like to move forward with that, whether it's going to a task force to define some of those specific strategies, whether it's working with staff to define those strategies, we have a lot of tools in our toolkit to get there. And then that's when we will be most equipped. And I think we need to move quickly so that we can act on some of the goals as kind of preliminary defined tonight, to move quickly, to get that money out into the community, to solicit that support from community partners to act on these goals. And then, of course, providing that continuous feedback, which we heard actually throughout the conversation tonight, that it is important to be able to communicate with our community for transparency and accountability, but also to be able to demonstrate the return on investment for every dollar that we spend. So recognizing that ongoing update to both you as a governing body, but to our community as a whole will be instrumental to making sure that we're on track and realizing that vision that you've set for us as a community. So with that, there is obviously a lot more work to be done, but I feel like I have a lot of really good inputs from each of you to help me kind of at least start with the initial language and developing the vision statement and goals for you. Feel free to reach out to me over the next few days as I will work on this and set a deadline of getting you something by next week at some point. I'll work with Mr. Bach to figure out how he would like me to proceed. But with that, I will turn it back over to our county administrator to kind of take it home.
I think we're.
And thank you all for your
closing on time,
participation
Ashley.
tonight.
So, yeah, everybody did great. I will turn this to Mayor Albee because I think we're about timed out.
Thank you. I want to give plenty of time for people to take a break here. So thank you for your participation, and we will look forward to what we have in the future.